What positive effects has the quarantine had for you? My company, who had a firm no working from home policy, has finally seen how well everyone is doing while working from home, and have talked about loosening restrictions post-virus. I'm finally not exhausted. I've slept better than I have in years. I'm broke AF, but at least I'm sleeping. Lol. I've been going on daily walks in wooded areas, noticing things in nature I'd never paid attention to before. I am one of those people who started to do their balcony. 3 years in a row my balcony was dirty and without any plants. Now I cleaned up and put up some plants and it starts to look really nice. Due to my job, and the hours I work, I spend most of my time alone. There are days when the only people I see are the person who worked before me, and the one who works after me. But now my roommates work from home and I actually have people to talk to and be around. I feel like it's been good for my mental health. Oh man, so many positives. I bartend in a restaurant, so I've been laid off and collecting unemployment, and it's more money than I make in a week. I paid off my credit card debt. My carpal tunnel has healed. I have been drinking significantly less. Quit smoking. I've been cooking more. Saving money by not going out. I have a regular sleep schedule. I've been reading more. I've lost weight. I don't wear makeup anymore and my skin cleared up. I got a puppy and I've had all the time I need to train him. And so much more. This run-on sentence could go on for hours. I think the best thing is realizing how important it is to make the most of time away from work and to establish a routine that doesn't revolve around a job. What foods are absolutely delicious but are a pain in the ass to eat? Any sour candy with the sugar crystals on them. They're so good until you had a certain amount and then you just start scraping the roof of your mouth and your tongue raw. My dad makes a really delicious cherry jam, but he doesn't remove the stones, because spitting them out is part of the experience. Prickly pear, also known as cactus fruit. Pomegranates, pain the butt seeds, and the juice really stains. Coconut, always have hard times breaking the shell and then picking all the delicious coconut meat. My favorite pizza destroys my insides the next morning, if that counts. You are now dead. The last song you listen to is how your afterlife will be. What happens? Rasputin, perhaps I was sacrificed for the motherland. Well, I was just rickrolled a few minutes ago. Gangsta's paradise, him. I'm deaf, so you tell me. I either will be a smooth criminal or will be both hit and struck by a smooth criminal. Only time will tell. UHHHMM. UHHHMM. Sweet Home Alabama. What would you do if there was a child right in front of you? I would stare at him until he cries. Ask him where he's supposed to be, because it's certainly not here. Like, if it appeared in front of me, probably call CPS and hand him over. Call my psychiatrist and tell him that the little people are back. HBS HHHHH asterisk knocks kid over asterisk. If the child is old enough to wash these damn dishes, then the answer is simple. What are some wholesome historical facts not taught in school? In 2006, while the Ivory Coast was in the midst of a civil war, the opposing sides agreed to a ceasefire so that they could all watch the World Cup. The break in fighting paved the way for a peace agreement a year later. Abraham Lincoln grew his famous beard because a little girl said he would look better with one. The candy bomber. After World War II ended and Berlin was divided, the UK and US dropped food into West Berlin by plane. One pilot, Gail Halvorsen, started to donate his candy rations to the children, and soon other pilots started doing the same. To let the children know that it was his plane, the one with the candy, they would wiggle the plane's wings before the drop. Word spread and more children would come, and it started a new PR campaign and started to changed the mindset that Americans had of giving food aid to Europe. I always thought the story was really sweet. The F1 German Grand Prix. In 1976, after Niki Lauda crashed while hitting a barrier and catching a light, rival drivers Arturo Merzario, Guy Edwards, Harold Ertl and Brett Lunger all stopped their cars and ran to Lauda's aid. There are many such instances of this happening during the 50s right through the 80s, of championship drivers forfeiting a win to save a rival's life. During World War II, a German fighter pilot spotted a damaged American bomber, and rather than shooting it down, he decided to escort it to safety. Decades later, the two pilots found each other and became friends. When the pharaoh Mentuhotep II's harem daughter died around 2050 BC, he mourned. She was only 5 years old. Her tomb, touchingly, was inscribed with the pet name Mite. This is translated to kitten. Has anyone died from your school? If so, how did they die, and how did it make you feel? One of my classmates died of a ruptured aneurysm when I was 12. It was quite a shock to realize someone my age could just die. I'd lost my grandmother 3 years earlier in a car accident, but she was old. Old people are supposed to die eventually. Kids you go to class with, on the other hand, that was difficult to come to terms with. My best friend committed suicide. It was devastating. He didn't say anything and he seemed so happy. He messaged me asking if I had some charcoal to barbecue the night before it happened. When they found him, he had attempted carbon asphyxiation by putting charcoal in a garbage can and burning it in his garage. That didn't work, so he tried his car too, and it didn't work as well, so he shot himself. He tried getting me to bring him the charcoal he wanted to kill himself with, and my other friend was the one who bought him the shotgun rounds because he wanted to go hunting. Depression doesn't always have the most obvious signs. What made me feel the worst though is people who never talked to him, even the super popular who had made fun of him and acted like he didn't exist, went to his funeral and were telling people how they cared for him so much and wish they could have helped. It made me sick. One of my classmates drowned while trying to save his brother. His mother called me to let me know. That was one heart-wrenching conversation. A friend of mine went on a 30-day backpacking trip to Denali with a group just after the end of his junior year. He was already an experienced winter hiker before the trip. This was a training outing for bigger hikes on bigger mountains in other parts of the world. He disappeared one night when the group was camping near a glacier field. He was just gone. No struggle. Nothing amiss. Just gone. They never found his body. The best guess of what happened was that he went to pee or maybe get water in the middle of the night, but was so groggy he forgot to put on his crampons, slipped on the ice, and slid into one of the cracks in the glacier. Fell hundreds of feet into the almost frozen meltwater at the bottom, and eventually washed out to sea. I have always hoped that he hit his head on the ice when falling. The thought that he might have slid for a few seconds, only to feel the falling sensation for a while before understanding that he was about to die. Well, that terrifies me. When I was 14, my best friend died. We were doing sports at school and during the warm-up she fell backwards and smacked her head on the floor. She was still conscious but extremely dazed. The teacher ran to call an ambulance and I held her until they came. When she got to hospital, she was put in an induced coma to try and stop the swelling on the brain. A week later, her mom and brother had to make the decision to switch her life support machine off as there was too much brain damage. She was an amazing person and I still miss her 19 years later. The last thing she said to me was, "Is my hair still okay?" Quote. A new girl joined my homeroom group one year and hung out with myself and my 3 other friends every recess. And we showed her around the school, taught her how the school worked and things like that. She was a boarder at the school because I think her parents worked overseas. After maybe 8 weeks at the school, She died overnight from a sudden diabetic low as she was type 1 diabetic. What is the most effective psychological trick you use? Doing something you're avoiding by just doing the smallest possible step, like washing one plate. It cracks the procrastination paralysis and you usually end up doing the whole thing anyway. Predictability means safe. I'm a school teacher with a high number of students with trauma. Major issues while getting my routines established. But they're now super warm to me because I'm reliably predictable. I have 2 outfits that I alternate. I'm on Wed, Friday and a Tuesday, Thursday. Same greeting at the start of class. Same start to every class, etc. Have very transparent discipline too. They know exactly what gets a detention and what doesn't. If they can predict what will happen, they feel safe because they're in control of choosing their outcome for the day. I think it's called the hairy arms trick. When I'm about to hand in the first version of a piece of work, I will leave a small but noticeable error that's easy to fix. It's always the error that my boss notices and suggests changing, which means that she feels involved in the process but also doesn't nitpick for something arbitrary to criticize. Talk softer so people either de-escalate or pay more attention. Remember people's names. Greet them by it when you see them. Even if that's the only time this week you might. People really like it when someone remembers them. It's easy credit. Illusion of choice. Instead of saying you need to wash the dishes, ask if they'd rather wash dishes or do laundry. Or give a choice of time. Do you want to do the dishes now or in an hour? It makes a lot of people's brains skip the big answer, which is none of those. Subscribe, my brothers.